Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's WellnessWise webinar. My name's Katrina Walton. I'm founder and director of Wellness Designs, a boutique workplace wellness consultancy company, and we help organisations create healthy, safe and high-performing workplace. It's great to see such a range of attendees here today across Australasia and even as far as Ghana. We have joining us today across a range of industries, including government, health insurers, consultants, architects, interior designers, education, telecommunications and transport, which is fantastic. So before we get started, we'd just like to go through a few housekeeping items as to how to get the most out of today's session. So we've taken a screenshot just as an example of the attendees interface, and you can hopefully see something like this on your computer's page. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions throughout the webinar, so you can see the sample Q&A box there. So if you click on the bottom of your screen, you should see a little Q&A button where you'll be able to enter in your questions for Fiona, our facilitator, and we will run through these at the end of the webinar. You'll also see there an opportunity to chat or communicate with the organisers if you do have any things you want to communicate throughout the time. And also just a chance now to check your audio as well if needed. So we suggest that you set your audio to the speaker settings that are on the page now to enable you to again get the best from the webinar. At the end of the webinar, we're going to also send you a link to a really brief survey. We just appreciate you taking 2 minutes to complete the survey to let us know how you found the webinar, together with what also topics you would be interested in for the future as well. So now I'm going to provide a really warm welcome, and it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Fiona Cosgrove, our guest facilitator for today's session. Now, Fiona has over 30 years experience in the health and fitness and wellness industries, and for the past 14 years she's worked as a health and coach and trainer, having trained over 3,000 people through her company Wellness Coaching Australia. Fiona also holds a master's degree in exercise science and counselling and has owned several major health clubs and worked as a university lecturer as well in Sydney and Melbourne, and has also headed up the Golden Door group of health retreats. So Fiona believes that coaching is the means of creating lasting change in people's lives, and that it's essential in working with today's prevalence of lifestyle-related illness, having far-reaching relevance in the medical world. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Fiona. And Fiona, welcome, and thank you again for being part of our WellnessWise series.
Thank you, Katrina. Great. So the first thing I'm going to do, I believe you can see my video, and I'm going to try and turn that off so I can focus on, here we go, stop video. Hopefully you're now going to see the screen and not my face, which is much more comfortable for me. Thanks very much for the opportunity. I'm excited to present this material, and hopefully it will hit the spot for many of you. I'm sure you're working in different roles, and some of you will be corporate health managers and maybe working as allied health professionals. So we'll just get on to the first slide here, and I will say, like, first of all, I really want to acknowledge just how far we have actually come in the world of corporate health. About 20 years ago, I was asked to write and deliver an undergraduate course on corporate health management. Nobody seemed to know what that was, and I struggled to find anything going on in Australia that was really worth talking about, unless, of course, it had its origins in the US. Now, things have improved out of sight now, and the corporate health industry is firmly established and making a big difference in supporting people to live healthy lives, both in and out of work time. So today, what we're going to look at is how we can make things better, how we connect with people and get the most out of our corporate health spend. And what does that actually mean? How do we measure success? Is it just about decrease in absenteeism, reduced body fat, blood pressure? Personally, I don't think so. I think it's actually more these days about engaging people so that they actually want to be involved. So I'm going to talk broadly at first, but quickly zoom into how we communicate at an individual level. Because until we understand how each individual thinks and feels, and we're talking about the real micro communication skills here, we cannot address our people collectively and just hope we get it right. There will be 4 very short video clips, which aren't perfect by any means. We tried to demonstrate sort of a conversation that didn't work and a couple of conversations that would work better. And hopefully they'll be illuminating, if, as I say, not perfection. Also, as Katrina said, my background and my work is in training people to coach others in health and wellness. So I may use the term coach now and again, but I'd like you to think of it as an approach or a verb rather than as a title or, say, a noun, because I think we really do have a lot to learn from the coaching model. So here we are as a corporate health manager, let's assume at this stage, there's a lot of considerations to actually make. The first one is, what programs do we offer? There's a lot out, there's a lot of choice. If things are being run already, what's working well and why are certain interventions working better than others? And then how do we select them? When we see everything that there is possible to offer to our employees, how do we select them? Another big point is for the decision maker who may be resistant, whether there's a manager or not, how do we get them on side and actually get them to approve what we want to offer? And how do we engage people in the offerings or in our programs? You'll agree there's a lot of different things that we need to think about and a lot of work ahead. So let's start at the beginning. What we normally start with in any corporate health program is an assessment. And the very word assessment fills many people with fear. And when we start with assessments, what I'm going to ask is, are we assessing for illness or health? Are we determining what they need or what they want? So the first point is that we often use a deficiency model. We look at what haven't they got, and then we decide what they need to have. So when we do our assessments, are we working to their agenda or to ours? I mean, a really extreme example, and I appreciate that not everyone would necessarily use a health risk appraisal that goes into this much detail, but I've often seen the question, do you wear a seatbelt? And all I'm questioning there is the relevance to the person when they're answering that question. Is that an engaging question? They're probably wondering, why the heck is somebody asking me this? So are we sending the message, we want you to have better health or wellness so that you can work harder and we can benefit? Or maybe our message should be, we want to find out what better wellness would mean to you. So looking for readiness to change and uncovering motivation. Because otherwise, instead of getting interest and enthusiasm, we end up with this. We end up with disengagement. I love this slide here because I think it's also really important to note that we can't judge wellness in just one dimension, and yet we tend to. We look around and we decide how healthy people are in the physical realm. And corporate health programs often focus on just that, on physical wellness. But if you look at the cartoon, you'll recognize straight away, you could have someone in a wheelchair who's whizzing away on the way to high-level wellness. And you could have a very fit marathon runner or any runner running very quickly towards premature death. And I've seen this. And I think that's a point that I'll make a few times today, is we need to be looking at mental as well as physical wellness. I have certainly shifted over the years from focusing simply on how to keep people physically well to working out what's actually stopping them in their minds too. The interesting thing is when we're busy focusing on physical wellness, what often happens is that an employee assistance program is in place, which is really, it comes in when someone has a mental health problem. As far as I'm concerned, it's a little bit late then, it's after the horse has bolted. So when we talk about the old approach, and to say, why is the old approach not working? When I refer to the old approach, I think about handing out information to people about what we think they need. And we might have assessed it. We might have known that there's a lot of people smoking and we need to give them lots of information on how to give up smoking or how bad it is for them, or any other change that's required. So we hand out leaflets, we run seminars, information and education. And all we're doing all the time is telling them what they should do. The reality is, in many cases, people actually know what to do, but they still don't do it. And guess what? Telling people what to do does not build confidence. In the health and wellness coaching world, we often talk about coaches are really in the business of building confidence, not muscles, not even health, but confidence and belief that someone can make a change. Because behavior change starts in the mind. And unless you believe you can, you won't. And the only way we can help people move forward is by discovering their intrinsic motivation, as we've already said, their reasons for change. So ideally, instead of taking the old approach, what we really should be doing, I believe, is facilitating and supporting the employee to choose behavior change that they wish to make, not what we think they need to do. And all the time encouraging personal responsibility, self-discovery, and self-efficacy, so belief in themselves and trying to get to know themselves better about what it is that's stopping them, where they want to get to, etc. We should be assisting in developing a plan and accountability, knowing that this could be different for every individual. And I think we should only be delivering expert information or education if an employee asks for it or if safety is an issue. Because the reality is, people don't resist change. They resist being changed. I'm going to show you a video clip here. Hopefully you won't have seen this before, but it is actually, it's quite cringeworthy in a way. And yet the conversation is very much standard to what many health professionals will actually have with a client. What I'd love you to do, we won't have a lot of time to interact, and of course I would love that to be the case, but when you watch this video, put in the chat box or just make a note of anything that you think is going wrong and what you observe.
So looking at your BMI and your consistently high blood pressure readings, now's a good time for you to start exercising and losing some weight.
Yeah. You know, I get up early with the kids and I'm at work till 7 or 8 p.m, so I don't have a lot of time during the day.
I understand time is scarce, but this is very serious. There's a high risk association between high blood pressure and risk of stroke.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I feel guilty spending time on myself when I should be spending it with the family.
I know it's hard to juggle everything, but if you don't spend the time now working on your health, you're not going to be there long term for your family.
Yeah, but I've never been a good exerciser and I've never really enjoyed it. You know, I'd rather read and relax with a couple of good reads. That's the best end of day for me.
Okay, it's important to relax at the end of the day, but keep in mind alcohol can increase your blood pressure as well. So you may need to watch how much you drink as well.
Yeah, but, you know, I've heard that.
So I'm sure many of you actually saw lots of things in that too. I didn't see anything come in the chat box, whether I missed them or not, or Katrina, if there's anything that anyone put there or even thought, feel free to share with me. But I'm sure most of you are actually seeing what's happening. So the more we push someone to change when they're not ready, the more they will resist change. And you can actually see that the client there, the patient, whatever you want to call them, is actually getting more and more withdrawn and more using the term yes but, yes but. And what our natural tendency is to go in harder when someone's actually resistant, because of course we want to get our own way. And the reality is, I mean, this is all about motivation. And there are two types of motivation, as I'm sure you're aware. There's what we call controlled motivation and autonomous motivation. So controlled motivation comes from outside. People are saying, when they actually are being pushed from outside by someone saying this is what you should do, of course they come to us and actually say, well, I must do this, I must lose weight, I must get fitter, I should, I have to. It's all about pleasing others, and you can hear it in their language. And while they're saying, using these terms, they're also judging themselves. It's implicit in those statements. So what happens here is that, yes, this sort of controlled motivation occasionally can lead to compliance, but it also can lead to defiance, which we see so often. So consider this: force, facts, or fear don't create behaviour change that lasts. And finally, this point about we mistakenly continually provide advice. Personally, even the word advice I find rather disempowering, because it's suggesting straight away that the person giving the advice knows more than the person receiving it. This is what we really want. We're looking for autonomous motivation. We're looking for the sort of motivation that comes from within. So their decisions actually then come from their own choice, their interest and volition. So intrinsic or autonomous motivation gives them a sense of control and self-determination. And we are self-determining human beings. The steps then that they decide to take once they're autonomously motivated are much more likely to be fun, challenging and interesting. And this has been shown by the research. And autonomous motivation, intrinsic motivation, actually creates energy and creativity. None of these things are evident when you have motivation coming from outside. So we often talk, again, when we're coaching, is about helping people create a vision, helping people actually imagine what it could be like if it were better. whatever that is, whether it's their energy, their health, their sleeping patterns. Because what happens as humans, we get stuck in the mindset that nothing can change. So a lot of our questioning is around, what do you want? And not only that, why do you want it? So what's the value behind the change? What else could change in your life? And people will start tapping into what we call this idea of possibility thinking. And possibility thinking sets off different brain chemicals and can create a completely different mindset. This is what we need to do. I'm going to introduce you to, and some of you again may be familiar with this, but I love this beautiful analogy, the elephant and the rider. It's talked a lot by, in the book Switch by the Heath brothers, but it actually was around quite a long time before then. If you think about us as human beings having two different parts of us, we have an intellect and we have emotions. And this model suggests that our emotional side is like an elephant. So look at the size of it, look at the power of it. These are our emotions. This shows you how strong they are. And then our rational side sits on top, the little dude on top with the cane, and the rational side is the rider, very, very small. And the rider is the person, he's all about the self-control or the willpower or the reasons why. He says, I will, I won't, I want. The interesting thing about the way we've evolved over time, when we were in the caveman days, our instincts were for maybe sex, sustenance and safety. And because we needed to actually stay alive as things got a little bit more sophisticated and complicated, this idea of self-control was sort of layered on top of these instincts. So it's not actually terribly efficient. So what actually happened, to give you an example here, is the rider is saying, I need to lose weight, and the elephant's saying, eat the cake. Who's going to win out? What we want to do is get the elephant moving, because he's the one with the power. And this is just exemplifying what I talked about, demonstrating this idea of getting emotions involved. So to get the elephant moving in the right direction, we need to appeal to both the elephant and the rider, to people's hearts and minds. And in the past, healthcare is really focused only on people's rational side, unless, of course, they were using fear as a tactic. It's been said, I like this, thinking leads to conclusions, but emotions lead to action. So how do we engage people's emotions? How do we get past the inclination to appeal to their rational self? By using the language of engagement. Now, the language of engagement, the key element of it is about connection, really. Engagement, connection, and the first key element is about building trust. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of people in the corporate health arena, particularly employees, have lost that sense of trust because they feel that they're being asked to do things that aren't necessarily for their benefit. Now, that's not across the board by any means, but there's a lot of people who go, hang on a second, I'm not going to be told how to live my personal life as well as my professional life. So we actually have to overcome that. Now, the next video shows you how we get it wrong. Okay, so it starts off fine, and then we sort of fall into this pattern of let's just be coercive and as persuasive as we can to get someone to pay attention to what we want them to pay attention to. Hey, Katrina.
Oh, hi, Fiona. How's it going?
Hey, I'm good, I'm good. How's your morning been?
Yeah, it's pretty full on at the moment.
Is it? Yeah, you're under a lot of pressure at the moment, aren't you?
Trying to get everything wrapped up.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited. So, you know, the yoga program, or some of the things I've actually been trying to, the well-being initiatives. We've got the yoga program and it's starting next week. So I'm really, really pleased. So I'm hoping lots of people will come to it. So you are going to be one of those people, aren't you?
Oh, I'm not sure about the yoga.
Oh.
Getting into all those weird poses. Yeah, I don't know if it's my thing.
Oh, really? Well, it's really good for you. There's an awful lot of benefits of yoga, not just flexibility. I've been doing yoga for a few years now. It completely changed my world.
Then you have to get any tights in front of your colleagues.
But it's so easy after work. You just bring your tights in. It's easy. You finish work, you walk in there with those. So it doesn't matter what they think about you.
Don't you just sit there going on for like an hour?
Well, a little bit of that. That doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, the main thing is that we get. I've been working on these things for so long, and we get something over the line, and we put it on, and people don't come, and we've got the budget for it, and it's really important that people attend.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe probably something else. So we've got a class near where I live. Maybe we could go to that instead.
But you've got to travel. This is really convenient, and it's free.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, I'm not sure if it's my thing, but anyway, I hope it goes. I'm sure you get a few that turn up.
Well, have a think about it and do me a favour. Would you just pass the word and say to people, look, guys, you have to support this. Otherwise, they won't be doing anything like this again.
Yeah.
So hopefully I will see you there next week.
We'll see. Thanks, Fiona.
Gee, that went well, didn't it? Like we say, a little bit cringeworthy, but you get the idea. And it's all we do. We try and play on people's guilt and our enthusiasm. But at no stage did I really find out any reasons why Katrina, in that case, would even want to go along to yoga. So I do apologise if the sound is a little bit quiet. I'm afraid I can't turn it up anymore on my computer, so we'll see how we go with that. So what are we really wanting to do? What should we be using and tapping into? Connecting skills, and I call them coaching skills. And again, when we do training and coaching, we start off with 3 core skills of connection. Which are these? And I'm sure these aren't new to you. The reality is, though, these aren't just about good coaching. This is about communication in the world. And I believe actually everybody needs to be able to do these 3 things. And if they did, the communication worldwide would be a lot better. So let's just look at the 3 things. So mindful listening, we're familiar with that. Of course, it's the most important skill. The idea of mindful listening is that we suspend our judgment. Okay, we're listening for emotions as well as facts from the person. We're not trying to work out what we're going to say next. We have full attention on the person as they're speaking. We're seeking to understand. And of course, putting aside our filters and all the different things that come up for us as the person's speaking. It's probably one of the biggest gifts. It might be the first time that someone has really listened to that person. And we see this such a lot. We live in such a crazy, busy world that the skill of mindful listening is really not well known. So there's the first thing. Never mind what comes next, just listen. And then the second part of this is open-ended inquiry or open-ended questions. And I put a lot up there, and it's the kind of thing that we should be asking either directly or obliquely, is things like, what would you like more of in your life? What would you like less of in your life? What would you like to accomplish in the next 3-6 months? What do you think the benefits of such and such might be? How do you think you'd enjoy the program? What do you think you might achieve by attending the program? What will it take for you to make changes? What's holding you back or standing in your way? Now, they're just samples. There could be any one of a number of questions that actually elicit a longer answer than one word from the person we're asking the question of. So questions do great things. Questions actually get people thinking. So to start the process of thinking is a lot more involved than someone just telling them what to do. The second thing is when we ask someone a question, they create answers we believe in. Yes, we like our own ideas better. And thirdly, they honour us as people. So for someone to ask you a question that you've never been asked before, that can be a really, really significant moment for many, many people. And thirdly, reflections. So reflections are just repeating back. So it sounds to me like you've had a busy day. It would seem that you've had a lot going on in your life. Whatever it is, that what we're doing is, again, seeking to understand, but checking in with the person to make sure we've heard correctly. So the client may say something, or the person we're speaking to may say something, and by reflecting back at least the essence of it, it makes them feel heard and validated and acknowledged. It can actually get to the heart of the matter much quicker and also encourage this further self-exploration and give a totally different perspective for them. They might shift their thinking. They might really reframe a person's experience or reality. So those 3 things are key. We need them. We all need to know them. We need to do them better. We said at the beginning that often one of the biggest problems is this. Maybe not that particular person, but the person who writes the checks or makes the decision or approves the programs is resistant to the concept. And it might be for lots of different reasons. It might be just that they believe that the investment in corporate health and wellness is a waste of time and money because of their personal background. Sometimes it can be that their health really isn't the best. And I've seen this so many times. We know that there's lots of people in very high positions of authority, or middle managers, whatever, who do a great job at work, and yet their own health is not good. It always amazes me that there isn't more of a market or more work being done in the executive wellness coaching space, which one day there will be. But there's this person who's actually blocking. So how do you handle this? And I wish there was one quick answer to get you past this. And again, we have another little video, which hopefully you can hear, which has a slightly better conversation about how to at least start the conversation. But the first thing we need to do is actually really try and understand the resistance. So what's the reason behind it? Do they feel under threat? We need to use the same communication skills with that manager as we would with the employee to try to get them on side. So in other words, not push, just literally use those 3 core coaching communication skills. Potentially approach the issue in another way, maybe by looking for some initiative that that person might actually welcome and enjoy themselves. I know that sounds a bit sneaky, but it's not a bad way around it. And the thing is, changing culture and gaining support in an organisation, as you would know, takes time. It's not going to happen quickly. However, if you actually do get somebody like this on side, they can actually be your best champions. So we have to be subtle, and we have to be not devious and clever in our approach. If we can engage these people emotionally and just hold back from railroading or preaching, we're much more likely to get where we want to get to. So here we go, conversation again. I will do my best to turn the volume up. Slightly better conversation. Hi, Katrina. Sorry to bother you in the coffee shop. That's right. Yeah. Have you just got a second?
I have. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just come out of an exec meeting.
How did it go?
Yeah, it went well. Yeah.
Did it?
A lot on the agenda.
Lots of good decisions made. Fantastic. That's great. This place is really very busy. That's for sure.
It is. Yeah. And how things in your world?
Yeah, they're good. I feel like we're making progress. Really, my reason for the comment now is to ask if you have time for me to run through the ins and outs of the wellbeing program. You probably heard about that we've actually been rolling out with different departments.
Yes. Actually, the CEO was talking about this. I love the concept of it. It's so unbelievable. Sure. I've got a few key teams missing and those positions at the moment. I've worked through the group. I just don't know how we're going to.
Yeah, I totally get it.
On it,
yeah.
To release my staff,
Especially in your department, it seems like you're really under the pump all the time.
Yeah, that's right. So love the idea.
Yeah, I see that. Do you know much about the program? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, just the bits the CEOs mentioned. It sounds like a big commitment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wonder if I can sort of prevail on you, because what's been interesting when we look at the results from the other departments, things are coming out of it that are actually quite unexpected. And I hear what you're saying. I know that time's poor. If you have even like 10 minutes, and I promise you I won't give you a whole lot of boring statistics, I'm not here to strong arm you into sending it to your team. But if I could just explain how it's worked and some of the things that have come out of it. The reason I say that is that this time of year, with what's going on with your team, we're finding that actually the program is having some flow-on effects that are actually beneficial and very, very timely. I'd probably need to just sit down and show you those things, but I do hear where you're coming from right now. It's probably the last thing you want on your list right now.
Yeah, so what sort of outcomes?
We're finding actually they actually do a lot of subjective reports, so stress levels have gone down a lot. There's feelings that by putting the program on, that the employer, that the company actually does care about them. And it's amazing how if people can actually stop from work for a little while, they can actually regather their thoughts and often go back into work and work a lot smarter and harder. But this is stuff I know you've heard before. There's some elements within the program that are quite unique. I'd love to have the opportunity to explain it to you, because I realise you just had an email through and everyone's got the same information, but I won't take very long, 10 minutes maybe the most, and then totally up to you and you consider the facts.
I've got to shoot to another meeting now.
Yeah,
Do you
sure.
want to make a time with my PA? Yeah, and see if we can make that 10 minutes this afternoon.
That would be great. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks, Katrina.
Thanks, Fiona.
So I do apologise. I think there were some sound issues there, and I have taken out my headphones, so hopefully you won't get any background noise. The key points in there, if you missed at the beginning, again, a little bit cheesy, but the approach was different, and it was more about trying to get some idea of the benefits of the program without preaching and spending too long. But the main thing is just to try and book a time, go in tentatively, acknowledge the fact that yes, they're time poor, and acknowledge the barriers to someone actually embracing it wholeheartedly. And don't push, okay, without pushing. So just on the videos, as I say, I'll try one more without the headphones, which Katrina could just let me know if the sound was better when I took them out. We will make them available to you. I'm sorry, that is a little bit frustrating, but hopefully you'll get the gist of it. So, once again, this is all about how do we engage people. Again, reinforcing we need to speak to their hearts as well as their heads. So it's not purely the rational thing, it's actually engaging them in the process. So get people so they're joined in the conversation. And a really important science to understand, and I have to not finish on this, but sort of bring this up here, is positive psychology. Now, I'm sure quite a lot of you will be very familiar with this science, and it's not a new science. It's been around, well, since the turn of the century. And yet we have so much to learn from it. And I think I said earlier that in the early days when we were working in the field of creating lifestyle change or supporting people to create lifestyle change, and coming from a fitness background myself, the focus was all about what they did. It was about their movement, it was about their fitness, it was about the doing and the physical side of it. And yet more and more these days is that people understand that the barriers to people doing those health behaviours, maybe those physical behaviours, is what goes on in their mind. We really do need to understand people's psyche and their thinking and use as much as we can of the science. Now, Martin Seligman is obviously the grandfather of it all. There's lots of other people involved. And with, just to start with this model, these are his 5 key pillars of well-being that he believes really dictate whether or not you will have a good life or not. So the P for positive emotions, E for engagement, R for relationships, presumably positive relationships, M for meaning, and A for accomplishment. And at first you might look at those things and think, really, what has that got to do with our corporate health program? But we need to actually know what it has to do with this, because it's what makes people tick. Whatever we're putting on for people, whatever we're involving them in, whether it's their work or their outside of work activities or their ancillary activities in the workplace, we need to be thinking about how to create as many positive emotions for them as possible. You may know the saying that with positive and negative emotions, we need both of them in life, but negative emotions tend to stick like Velcro, whereas positive emotions flip like butterflies. And we really need many, many more positive emotions, negative emotions to be in a good mindset. The next thing is engagement, and that's been illustrated, or we tried to illustrate that in the videos, that if you can get someone involved in the conversation, there's much more chance of them taking on board and going with it. People want to be involved. So how do we engage them? How do we get them being part of the process? I can think of a colleague who used to run health fairs some years ago, and in the old way it was all about just collecting data, until he did a lot of coaching with us and his team, and they went in and they made sure that in their health fairs, every single stand, there was a way of engaging the employee. And what happened at the end was they asked them questions, they asked for their input, obviously did measures, but everything was set up so that they were really touch-feely and involved in the process. And they did incredibly well, because at the end of the health fairs, they would present a report that virtually came from the employees saying this is what they wanted. And this is what we started with today, is find out what they want, not just what they need. So engagement is a big piece of the puzzle. Positive relationships. We know that 70% of our life satisfaction actually comes from relationships, and that's both in our personal life and our professional life. And we also know that in the workplace, negative relationships can destroy someone's enjoyment and certainly make them move on quickly. M for meaning. M for meaning. Why would they do it in the first place? So this really relates to what we were saying. Find out what people want, but find out why they want it. And I know this is a little bit of an aside or a comment on meaning and purpose generally. We do know now that having purpose in life is so closely correlated to good health behaviours. So by that, it's in other words engaging people in their work. And in a corporate health program, sometimes actually that's really the best place to start, I believe. And finally, accomplishment. Give people a chance to get a tick on the board, a run on the board, something to celebrate. So whether it's a certificate or whether it's some way of measuring it, and yes, you can throw competition into it too. People like to feel that they've actually achieved something. And the story with this one is that not very long ago, actually towards the end of last year, I was asked to talk to somebody who was the head of a company who was interested in exploring why the corporate health initiatives that were in place really weren't working. And the more I listened and the more I sort of tried to go along with the idea of how do you get someone using the gym, how do you get them eating healthily when they're supplying all this great food, I kept coming back to the idea is, do the employees actually know you care? And when I say care, I'm talking about this stuff. It's actually about caring them on a deeper and more personal level than just how many steps they're doing and how many calories they're burning and what their body fat is. So I think that corporate health is now going to a whole different level. And I think that we miss this or we neglect this really to our own peril. So positive psychology, a big deal. And there's another science that I will talk about, and I could spend probably an hour talking about it, but I won't do that. To create change, we need to create new habits. So the big picture thing is find out what somebody wants and find out why they want it. Engage their hearts, do the big picture thinking. But if you actually want them to start living a different way, we need to know why people do what they do. And we need to help them create, I guess, actions that are so automatic, they don't even need to think about it. Some of the key points I've put in here, I think, relate to the corporate space. Knowing that we create associations between our environments and our behaviours. So when people come to work, they need to feel that the environment has an atmosphere of health if we're expecting them to live healthy lifestyles. Now, how you do that is up to you. But I think, again, knowing how to make people feel comfortable, what a working environment is like, is key to corporate health. Also knowing that we need to replace an old habit with a new habit. So you can't just give up smoking, you can't just take something out of someone's world without helping them substitute with something else. So bear that in mind again if you're trying to change behaviour. Don't just try and take it away, try and replace it with something new. There's a lot said about foundation habits, and I really like this term because it makes sense again with health and wellness coaching that although we end up talking about a lot of the ways people think and the way they live and how they relax, but the foundation habits, which would really be sleeping, movement, eating, and believe it or not, personal organisation, getting good habits in these areas can lead to changes in other habits, and really they will affect good health and wellness overall. Habits are built on rituals, schedules, consistency, and triggers. Really boring, really detailed. That's how we actually create new habits. And it would be easy to influence this. So whether it's prompts through the computer, whether it's timetabling, whether it's having something in a schedule, it's a consistent message and triggers that say when this happens, that's when this happens. That's how we help people become automatically healthy, you could say. And finally, taking a first small step. So it doesn't have to be the whole program finished. If we can encourage people just to take the first step, it might be all they need to get going. Now, the final video hopefully will illustrate this, and I will listen in to see if the sound's any better. So we'll give it a go. Hey, Katrina, how are you?
Good, how are you going?
Good. I was actually looking for you to pass on a little bit of news at the moment. How's your morning been?
Yeah, good, flat out. You know what it's like, end of the year. Everyone's trying to wrap things up.
Your department's really under the pump at the moment, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So much for slowing down this time of year. But anyway.
Well, you might be interested in this or not. We've just, as you know, I've been looking at a few different initiatives under the corporate wellbeing program, and we're trialling a yoga class starting next week. It's at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, and we might put a second class on too. I just thought I'd let you know that it was going to be on.
Oh, okay. Oh, I like the sound of it, but I don't know whether my body would get into a lot of those difficult poses.
Yeah, it's a bit daunting. Have you done yoga before?
I haven't, no.
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of it, but also the idea of getting tights alongside your colleagues.
I know, that's fair enough. It's one thing working side to side in suits, isn't it? You've actually got to get out there and sort of feel like you're semi-naked. Yeah, I kind of knew that a lot of people would feel like that.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But in saying that, the fact it's, what time did you say? 5 o'clock? So that would be nice and convenient. It'd save me having,
sure.
Because I was looking at a class outside, but that would save me having to rush to get to a class if it was, easy to access, and you said it's subsidised or free. Is that right? Yeah,
there is some subsidy to it, but it's something that we feel that, we want people to go because they really want to go. So actually leaving from work, that would suit you, would it?
Well, it probably would work in well, just to try and fit it in the day, particularly given we're so busy at the moment.
Yeah, because everyone's different. Some people people prefer to go home and do their workout. Well, hoping there will be a few people who may want to stay around. But you said you've never done yoga before?
No, it's still a bit daunting. Yeah, still a bit apprehensive about going on my own.
Yeah, I get it. There's a lot of things around yoga that make people feel a bit like, woo, it's all very kind of woo. The actual instructor we've got, she's great. She's very down to earth and practical. And I made sure I sort of checked this out. And again, it's totally up to you, but I think it was really important to get somebody who could relate to the people in the corporate world more. And I've done one of the classes and I thought it was really good. But I totally get the fact that it's, you just got to take that leap of faith and join all your colleagues and try something new in front of your colleagues too. Can you think of anything else when you said you were thinking about it before? Any reasons why you thought yoga might be a good thing?
I think for the stress, you mentioned that before. I think you've observed that, other people have observed it. So I know personally I need to do something about it.
Yeah, sure.
To manage the stress more effectively. And I hear it's pretty good yoga that way.
Yeah, it is actually. I know that too. I must admit, I don't know how much more flexibility I got when I was doing it, but I certainly felt calmer all the time. So it is definitely a byproduct of it. But it would be up to you. We're starting next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And like I say, if you're at all interested in even giving it a try, I'm going to do the first class. So I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, okay. Well, I might come along with yourself then. If you're going, I'll be happy to come along.
As long as you feel comfortable with it. And hey, if you don't like it, you don't have to come back.
We'll give it a try if you're going as well. Yeah, someone there.
Right, awesome.
A bit of a support person.
So why don't I swing by then just to give you a reminder that it's on. I'll just swing by. Okay. It's up to you whether you join me or not. That'll be great. It'll be fun to have some company.
Okay, well, thanks for letting me know. We'll see you there.
Thanks, Katrina. Okay, so hopefully the sound was better for you then, and I do apologise for the early ones. And it was cheesy, and Katrina and I are both probably laughing at that video. But the points in it really are just to say, give them space, just give them space, let them come up with their own reasons for change. Don't push. Again, looking at the science of habits, the first small step, having a trigger, having someone come along and actually remind them. But again, just getting to the first class without undertaking the whole thing. And I think that's probably what we need to actually make sure that we don't ask people to sign up for 3 months. Let them actually have a trial of what's going on. So hopefully out of those videos that you actually could hear, there were 2 that weren't a terribly good approach and 2 that were a slightly better approach, if a little contrived. And to summarise, I guess, how do we use the information, or the information that's gone before? It's really, I guess, thinking about how to engage people at all levels is important. We can't one size fit all, just doesn't work. Find out what they want and why they want it, not what you want for them. Engage their emotions. Avoid trying to change people. Show them you care. Learn coaching communication skills. I know you can tell I have a passion for this. But also the last point, also be aware that people may want different change. So someone might want to lose weight, someone might want to give up smoking, someone might want to sleep better, they might want to have all sorts of things that they don't necessarily share straight away, but they could struggle with the same obstacles. So we found, again, with our programs that actually having people talking together about a lack of time and how that affects their health can be as useful for all of them. And we run group coaching programs that address different barriers to change. So consider that when setting your programs, that maybe the very barrier to change is what needs to be addressed, rather than the actual how do we help people give up smoking. And that brings us to the end of the material. And again, as I say, we'll make the videos available. I'm going to probably pass over to Katrina now for any questions. You can see on the slide that if anyone's interested in doing training, it's a one-day training or more. And we'd love to hear from you, but I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation, and I will try and answer any questions you have that are coming at me now.
Wonderful, and thank you, Fiona. And as Fiona mentioned, a great chance to send through any questions that you may have now. Certainly one probably to get going, Fiona, just while we're waiting for a few questions to come through, is you spoke about the importance of building trust. And I was keen to get a better sense of how we create that trust. Often when you see a lot of myths and misconceptions or perceived, particularly around things like privacy and other skeptical thinking, I guess, around why people would want to get involved and why the organisation, has a vested interest in their health and well-being. Are you able to comment around that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I still think that the trust is actually our first thing. It's more about how not to lose trust in the first case, because so many people are coming in with that attitude. So, you know, people just won't trust us if they feel like they're being coerced. And it comes down to what we were saying earlier, that we're self-determining human beings. So whatever we can do to help them believe that they were part of the choices and their decision to do it is their decision to do it. Interesting you said that about one of the tricky things with a health program. I'm sure some of you come across it, is that who you're being paid by to run this, and depending whether you're working for the organisation or you're a contractor, I think it's very important for us to have clarity right from the beginning of actually what will be reported. So is it a matter of the individual's results will be reported? Personally, I don't think they ever should be. I think it should be actually anonymous. So the success of the program might be reporting that 75% of people achieved 80% of their goals, for example. But yeah, I think consulting, engaging and listening, because it's no different from any other management situation, really.
No, that's great advice. And again, just as we're waiting for some questions to come through, Fiona, how we also get people to admit that they may need help in some less traditional areas as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, maybe by surveying those more traditional areas first. So if someone's saying that they're struggling with anxiety, they may not actually put that on the list of their issues, their health issues. So if we survey, I think, the things around sort of fitness, nutrition, movement, etc., and as I said earlier, sort of ask what's getting in the way, but asking them in a much more personal environment. And this is, again, when one-on-one is perfect, or in a group situation, you'll find that people will actually talk about the blocks to that change or to having that particular habit, and that's what will come out of the question. So, you know, lack of time, lack of sleep, anxiety, etc., may well be the answers to those first questions, and you can work on it from there.
Okay, fantastic. And just one final one I've made a note of here, Fiona. You asked about the importance of, or you emphasise the importance of assessing what employees need. And some people obviously like to be told what to do, and others will simply rebel because it's expected of them. How do we handle these differences?
Yeah, and I think, again, this is probably what I said before, is that when we're dealing with a mass, with a lot of people, we tend to think they're all the same, and yet people are different. There's all sorts of different personality, you know, styles and quizzes and segments that we can actually do. But when we talk about the way people respond to expectations, there's a lovely model, I think it's Beckman, and she talks about people who are obligers, so people who will meet outer and inner expectations quite readily. And at the other end of the scale are the rebels. You get some questions in the middle who need a bit more information, and the rebels will be the ones that won't do it simply because they're being told to do it. So I think we just actually do need to understand more about human personality, actually being able to know how people are responding to it and know that they're not going to respond exactly the same way. I know that's not a very satisfactory answer in terms of specifics, but I reckon we can do a lot of damage if we go about it the wrong way.
Fantastic. Thank you, Fiona. And we've had no additional questions come through. So I would just like to thank you very much for being our contributor and facilitator of the first WellnessWise webinar for 2017. I hope people are feeling a bit more wellness-wise on the back of today's session, and a great topic to get us going. Again, just to highlight for those that may be interested in our broader WellnessWise Academy as well, I guess the intention of this webinar series, and also of the Academy more broadly, is really to empower people and energise workplaces and really build that capacity to foster healthy and thriving workplaces across Australia. And that includes at the 3 levels: at a leadership level, a practitioner level, and at a champion level. Also, just a little plug for the upcoming practitioner courses that we have scheduled across Australia in the next few months. I think our next session is in Sydney. Then we head to Hobart, Brisbane, Perth and Auckland, and also Townsville is a new one that we'll be offering in the regional areas as well. So if you are interested in further information, we certainly encourage you to stop by our website. And just finally, again, as mentioned at the start of the webinar, on the back of today, we'll be sending you through a link to an evaluation survey. We would love your honest feedback, as I know Fiona would as well, on how you have found today's session. Thank you for your patience with a few little technical hiccups. Despite best testing, sometimes it comes down to the technology gods as well on the day. So thank you for your patience around that. And we hope you can join us for our next webinar. We're just finalising dates and times now, but that will be a session which follows on nicely from today's session with Fiona on how to engage managers, particularly around mental health. So thank you very much, and wishing you all a great day.
Thanks, Katrina.
Thank you.